Hello, everyone. Good
Hello.
evening and happy day from wherever you are joining us today. It's me, Christian, business partner of Reinhardt, who will take his place today as Reinhardt is in the US on business travel. But very excited for a great conversation with Joshua Habursky. And we'll wait for just a few more seconds here to have a few more people join before we get into this another episode of the Light 'em Up Lounge.
Hi, Ray. Good to see you. Hi, Brian. Haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah, I haven't been able to make it. Uh, I have a new school where I'm teaching in person and it conflicts. And so they're on spring
Okay.
break. So I get to be here. But summer should work out better. But yeah, I've been missing it. So gotta go work.
Gotta go what? Yeah.
All right, everyone. Let's kick it off, shall we? Great to see everyone today on this beautiful Wednesday. We welcome Josh to the Light 'em Up Lounge today. Hello, Josh. How are you doing?
How you doing, Christian? I'm here in New Orleans, got here yesterday and getting all the final preparations. Still also doing my other part of my job with the government affairs work. We got updates on the fly there. And I'm sure we got a lot to talk about in the next few minutes.
Absolutely, Josh. I think we're all curious on your take and what's currently going on. Again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule just ahead of PCA. Obviously, the event of the cigar world of the year, especially for everyone in and around the Americas. So we're very happy to have you join. Also, very happy to see a lot of familiar faces with us today. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome everyone to the Light 'em Up Lounge. I'm Christian, your host today. Reinhard is on travels and will be joining you next week again. But he made sure that I'm very much aware of the show today. I prepped a few questions. Obviously, I had some conversations with him around as well. So we can have a great conversation with Josh today. And as always, please feel free to join the conversations, ask questions in the chat, or unmute yourself, and we'll try to get them answered. So without further ado, Josh, I want to lead with a question, and I read this some article that you did conduct several member surveys, it says, in leading up to the decision of where to host PCA this year. And obviously, we all know it's in New Orleans. We're very excited about it. The first thing I thought was like, oh, I'd be curious what people were asked and what was asked because obviously it's happening this year, next year in New Orleans, and yeah, I'm just curious to hear about your decision making there.
Yeah, so I mean, the decision to go to New Orleans was by our board of directors and my predecessor, Scott, who I took over for about 9 months ago formally. I'm kind of following suit from that, the decision on the location. My understanding was that the surveys were asking a set block of different locations of different cities within the United States. And then from there, research from our trade show and event staff team, they looked into it further and settled based off of, cost, the ability to smoke, continuous floor space, those types of factors, dates of availability, knowing that, we change from summer months to early spring. that we have a very limited grouping of cities and locations that will work with given those factors, especially being the smoking one. So New Orleans and Las Vegas are the ones that are really the leaders of the pack. There was interest in places like Nashville, Tampa, Miami, but for whatever reason, and most of those are large enough space where you can smoke, they did not make the final cut for the list. We are incredibly excited this year to have a few surprises in order. I know that a lot of folks were concerned, you can't smoke anywhere in New Orleans. Things have changed. The association had not hosted the trade show here since 2015. I think some of those because of legitimate concerns, and I think some of them because of misconceptions. So we worked through a lot of those concerns, and where appropriate, we proactively made some changes. And I think you'll see a lot of that put into action over the next few days at the show.
Very cool, very cool. Thank you for sharing. Certainly a very cool list there of potential candidates. Now, you said already the question of where you can smoke, where you can enjoy cigars, is also one that I've seen in various media outlets being discussed. Obviously, in Vegas, plenty of choices, in and outside the casinos and so on. How do you see it? I mean, we will only know after the show, I guess, but how do you see it in Louisiana and New Orleans? What do you think will happen?
So, I think it's one of those things that's unfortunately changing in Las Vegas as well. I think people look back at the Sands Venetian Expo, where the association, when I first started here 6 years ago, that's where it was hosted. And you would see the circle bar, the casino floor of that hotel where everyone gathered. After hours, after their dinners, people, would separate, go to different dinners, and then they would all convene there. And that's, I think, what a lot of the media and a lot of the attendees really enjoyed, really gravitated. Everybody comes together at the end of the night. But unfortunately, I was in Las Vegas January for another conference. The Sands Venetian don't allow you to smoke cigars on the gaming floor anymore. So that's a change that occurred in Las Vegas. For New Orleans, there are very limited amounts of space where you can smoke indoors. But there are options in the French Quarter. There are options in other parts of New Orleans proper where you can smoke indoors. We also released a guide on courtyards of restaurants, other bars where people could host smaller scale events. And then we also, made the investment to rent out a bar that is close to the convention center, right across from it, near Harrah's Casino, Manning's Sports Bar. This will have the capacity of 500 people every night, and that will be from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. So kind of that after hours feel. And then also in the French Quarter, we're hosting a block party with Cuban Creations from 8 p.m. to 2 p.m. all 3 nights of the trade show. So, we have nearly 5,000 attendees at the trade show. PCA itself is accommodating up to 1,000 people every night for, the choices of those two parties. Some of the hotels have the ability where you can smoke designated smoking areas. But there are a ton of options. Yesterday, after dinner, I got into New Orleans yesterday. We went to Mayan Cigar Company. That's another venue that's a PCA member. We also highlighted all of our PCA members where you can go and get a cigar. So hopefully, there's enough options for everybody to enjoy between the indoor and outdoor venues. But I will say, given the changes in dynamics with events in Las Vegas, Las Vegas is heading in that direction in some of the casinos as well. our bread and butter is ensuring that you have trade show space where you can sample the products, and that there's no disruption. You can smoke on the trade show floor, whether we host it in New Orleans or Las Vegas.
Well, certainly sounds like you guys put a lot of effort and thought into accommodating, the preferences of everyone. Very cool, very cool, very impressive. All the different locations. How's the weather like in New Orleans? I'm here in Amsterdam, and it's as always a bit rainy.
It's beautiful here. It was 75. I've been doing a lot of work this morning, different calls. There's been some activity on the tariff front, which is also part of my day job. So I've been dealing with that. I have not been outside today, but yesterday it was
Good.
75 and light wind. So beautiful. And these outdoor events, I think this is a new feature of this year's show, especially for the retail attendees and attendees of the parties. All the parties are sponsored by a cigar company. So, in previous shows, you might not end up with a ton of cigars unless you had appointments or you were able to go booth to booth. This go around, if you attend all of the events that the PCA is hosting in conjunction with the cigar manufacturers, you're going to get 14 samples or 14 cigars from there alone. So, we've made an effort to really increase the entertainment value, and a lot of this has to do with, and I talk about this in my opening address on Friday in the education sessions. It was an eye-opening experience for me to go to Nicaragua and for the Dominican Republic for the Pro Cigar and Pro Sabor, and seeing the entertainment value, the quality of events that they put on there. Obviously, the cost difference between those locations in the United States, there's a difference, but we want to create that sense of pride, that sense of entertainment. We know we have the business-to-business value. Our attendance is tracking very strong in membership. So it's really, I explained the process. The last 4 weeks have just been kind of putting the icing and the sprinkles on the cake or the cupcake, if you want to use that metaphor.
Nice. Will it actually be live streamed or some sessions recorded?
There will be some sessions recorded, not a whole lot. We do have a special guest that will be appearing on Friday, and I'm hopeful. We're working with some media communications
All
teams.
right.
We have a lot of higher profile dignitaries coming this year. There will be a political official that's coming, and we are hoping that we can record and live stream that event. But Antoine, who runs our marketing and communication, will be doing short vignettes and videos throughout the show of highlighting the exhibitors. This year we have over 70 new exhibitors. So that's something that we're really excited about. And I've tasked Antoine and Maria on our team to make sure that we get some content from some of the companies that we haven't heard a lot about, because for at least a few of them, this will be their first kind of foray into the cigar industry.
Thank you. Thank you. Kent had a question here. I'm happy to forward. And it's pretty much about the number of booths and exhibitors. Uh, have you noticed, have you seen, or do you know if there's more or less booths because of the move to New Orleans, or is it, yeah, hard to tell?
So, I mean, the show floor is sold out. We capped that for, I want to say, 3 or 4 weeks ago. You have some cancellations here and there, but for all intensive purposes, we had more of a demand of people that wanted to come to the show than we were able to accommodate. So I think the time of the year is the more important factor
Yeah.
in determination of that. Also, some holistic changes with the association. We're responding to feedback, constructive feedback. We're working on a lot of different fronts, and I think there's a lot of enthusiasm about PCA in general, and it's been percolating for several years. We have the right team in place, we have the right staff, and everyone's moving in the same direction.
I see. I see. Well, so yeah, congrats already on the sold out floor again. I mean, I saw the floor plan, a huge venue, many booths. So it looks certainly very exciting. Um, well, you said you have an opening part in it, of course. Uh, I'd be curious to know what your day looks like. Is that just meetings after meetings, or do you have time to explore, wander around? Yeah, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so my day Friday is crazy. I have a board meeting all morning, and then it goes right into the education sessions. From the education sessions, opening party, receptions. I think in between I have a product announcement, collaboration, and three or four interviews for different media outlets. So, I mean, this is our Super Bowl week. We have a ton of stuff going on, and it just kind of continues. The other great thing is a lot of the companies are hosting larger dinners and receptions, even outside of the PCA themselves. So I'm trying to drop by a lot of those, show support. I know that there's the Dominican consulate. They're hosting a private party here in New Orleans to, commemorate or highlight Dominican cigars and Dominican rub that coincides with our trade show. There's also a cigar festival for consumers that's going on this weekend in New Orleans. So I've got more invites to things than I have time in the day. So I'm trying to send representatives. I think one of the things that people think of PCA, large show, that we have a lot of more resources than we actually do, we're a staff of 7 people, so we have to cover a lot of ground these next few days. So I will be. I think I'm on my fifth cup of coffee today already. No cigars yet, too. I really need a cigar. But it's one of those things where we're all hands on deck, at least for the next 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, certainly Super Bowl week and weekend. I think we all can relate to that. Just a lot of madness, and I'm sure it will go great. Albert had a question here on if there's a theme or a certain message that's being conveyed this year.
Yeah, so I mean, I think really capturing New Orleans because it's the return to the city of New Orleans. In the past there was a lot of like Las Vegas themes, casino, gambling. The theme really is the taste of New Orleans. The flavors of New Orleans. You'll see that in the cocktails and the food at the opening party. Also, another new feature that the trade show team put together. At the convention center, they have like an overhang that they call the front porch. The front porch is sponsored by Tatuaje, and they will have their cigars available, the donut beignets that are common to New Orleans, along with Cafe Du Monde coffee. I think some drinks like specialty Bloody Marys. So really, if there's a theme is really the taste of New Orleans. I think there's a lot of sub themes to some of the addresses that are going to be made more on the practical sense of things. Talking about our court cases, the resiliency of the industry, the next generation, what does the future look like? No central theme. The association itself was kind of where tradition meets innovation. That's been something that we've has been used a lot in previous iterations. But I think that the theme itself, it still continues to be the family reunion. That's something that we continue to press upon.
Amazing, amazing. Uh, Andy, uh, you have a question.
Yeah,
Welcome to the show. Please go ahead.
thanks. Actually, a couple of them. I noticed on the app, you have the app for 25, like you do every year. Uh, the 20 is not listed. Are they just because they're doing it with JC Newman?
Yeah, They have a joint booth. Fuente
Okay.
is definitely will be there. I think they actually have a couple special announcements too, that they have this year with some other partners. I know the Opus X Society is doing something pretty interesting too.
And I also noticed General Cigars, and I called up a couple of the guys, some of the yeah, I called Sean Williams, and General's not coming this year. I'm
So
surprised.
they rotate between General and Forge, so a lot of the General folks will be there. You know, STG being the parent company, I know that Buffalo Trace, one of their brands, they're actually an opening party sponsor. So, you know, General and Forge, STG, they are here. Everybody, the major companies, are all present, and a third of the show floor, almost a third of the show floor, are brand new exhibitors. So, you know, that's where we kind of have that equation of we have we have to figure ways to get additional space so that we can accommodate more. But all the major brands are presenting in some way this year.
You don't have
Andy?
CAO Diesel or Cohiba coming this year, from what I've heard from Sean.
So that was the decision to rotate from Forged. Forged is owned by STG. STG is exhibiting. So I don't know within their specific booth footprint what products they are showcasing. But the parent company of General Cigar is present at the trade show. Whether they're doing it through General or Forged is up, you know, their business decision.
Andy,
Thank you.
just a quick
Yeah.
comment. Fuente is not only on the exhibitor list, but it's also on the trade show floor map. If you come in the entrance,
They
you turn
weren't
to your right.
yesterday. Rich, they
They-
weren't
they-
yesterday.
Well, they were there this morning. They were there the other day when I checked
Yeah.
on them. They're to
Right,
the
it's a
right of the
change.
entrance, near the front.
Yeah, yeah, they weren't on the app yesterday on the floor plan.
Okay,
Just to
and
tell you.
the other thing is a warning for people's health. Do not inhale when you're eating a beignet. That powdered sugar will have you coughing for about an hour and a half.
Did you learn that from Brenda?
I learned it the hard way.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I just checked on the app. They are here. They are
They're
on
here now. Okay.
Well, Rich, thank you for the health warning here. Much appreciated. I haven't had a donut beignet, and I probably need to look it up after the show. But certainly, yeah, New Orleans cuisine, certainly something that would attract me. Certainly, although being in Europe here, um, there's a question from Turk here. Do you think New Orleans makes it more attractive for vendors to join by having a city that's a bit more historic and less flashy, or is there no such a sentimental trend to be discovered?
Yeah, I think both cities are great for trade shows. You know, Vegas, after we have 2 years in New Orleans, probably going to want to go back to Las Vegas. And I think vice versa. I think the variety is good. You have a lot of new restaurants and new you know, places in both cities that are opening up, and I think that variety makes it you know, unique for attendees. So there's certainly going to be a lot of excitement this year. We've done and made investments to ensure that. And our hope is that, you know, we can keep people excited for 2026. I mean, we've already started, and that's where the process becomes concurrent. 3 weeks ago, we started booking booths for 2026. So there are 60 exhibitors that are already set for PCA 2026 in New Orleans.
Wild.
So that's kind of the amazing nature of it, is like you're planning one thing, you have another one, throw in the mix that, you know, we're partnering with Quartz for an event in Dubai in November. So, you know, there's a lot of things that are again, 7-person team is kind of juggling. And, you know, my focus in leading the association is, you know, don't don't mess up our core functions, but we need to grow. And if we're going to grow, we got to grow exponentially, and then we can add in more staff and more resources after the fact. We're doing things very responsibly where the association is not taking on undue risk, where, if one of these ideas were to fail, the association isn't going to have to cut a core function.
Yeah. And certainly, there comes a lot of responsibility to the members with this, and being able to consistently show up, every year, and that takes a lot. And it's yeah, great to see there's already such an interest. Um, Speaking about the retailers at the venue, it's certainly very US or America's biased, I would probably say. Or what do you think is the sort of split of attendees between US and let's say Europe and beyond?
So, it's been one of those things where the last, I would say, is 3 years in particular, post-COVID, we've become kind of a destination event for everyone around the world. And, I have told folks, if you're in the industry and you're a major player in the premium cigar sector, if you're based in Europe, for instance, your tried and true show is Intertabac, and I recommend people go to Intertabac. And if you're in the United States, your tried and true show is our show, and we recommend you go to that. But I also have been telling retailers in the US, you should check out Intertabac and see what's available over there, and vice versa. So we've been making a concerted effort to cultivate suppliers, industry partners, retailers when appropriate, to come to the United States to see our show, because yes, buying in the B2B is very important to US retailers and manufacturers, but it's one of the marquee events of the industry where everyone will be together. We're also setting the agenda for US policy, having a lot of those conversations, and that has an impact on the world. So, that's where, I'm mentioning we're starting this new project in the Middle East in Dubai. We looked at Asia and the Middle East as a developing market. We hope that one day that can be one of those tried and true marquee events as part of the full slate of a calendar of a retailer or manufacturer in this industry. But right now, like my advice to people is that, if you haven't been to our show and you're into Europe, or you're based in Europe, it's worth coming, maybe not every year, but at least once to check it out. And I think that holds true for the United States. If you're a US retailer, I recommend you go and you check out Intertabac and see what they have to offer. There's some new brands over there. I was at Intertabac last year and met 3 or 4 new companies that I had not heard of. So if we're going to be responsible stewards of the premium cigar industry, we need to be in the know, seeing kind of what are the differences, but what are the similarities, and how can we improve and learn from one another. And I think the different show offerings, especially the festivals that are in the cigar producing countries and Intertabac, we all have a lot to learn from one another.
Very well, very well. And uh, with you mentioning the policy making, I think it's a great segue to sort of the second part of today's show. And Josh, I want to, if I may keep you here for like maybe 45, 60 minutes. So we have another half an hour here for with you. And I know that light 'em up lounges can sometimes, go on for hours, but given the current developments in worldwide and global trade, I think my leading question would be, what do you think? What do tariffs mean to a cigar industry, given the manufacturing footprint, the international community? I probably don't want to jump into the exact tariffs and who's getting tariffs now and whatnot. Albert just commented some countries may be spared. Now there's so much in flux, and we don't really know. Maybe in tomorrow things will be a little different. Maybe in 90 days will be different. So I think it's probably not worth commenting on everything detail that's currently happening. But if, we see tariffs applied like suggested, what do you think? How can that impact the cigar industry?
Yeah, well, I mean, last week it was vastly different than what was announced about an hour ago. So, it's changed very frequently, and there's a lot of negotiations going on. And I think that, there was even interpretation of what was said on social media today as kind of the announcement of what the trade policy changes were. I read it one way, some of my other colleagues read it another way. We're still trying to decipher whether reciprocal or universal, what the context was and the actual meaning. When the tariff announcement were initially released, there were variances between the percentages that were released between documents, and there was questions about one country in particular, whether it was 19% or 18%, and getting clarification. It's just a number in that, macro sense, but in the micro sense, that is hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, the variance between percentage over time. So we haven't been getting real hasty. I know that there's an impulse. Tariffs in general lead to price increases. That's basic economics. Eventually the consumer pays more. That's basics across the board. This isn't limited to the premium cigar industry, and that's where there has to be a little bit of realism here. If the administration is doing this policy, they're thinking about much larger sectors. Now, we can voice our concerns. We can say, hey, there should be a carve out, there should be consideration. The United States, we can't produce enough cigars domestically to meet our market demand. I have been saying over and over, the United States is the largest consumer market for premium cigars. And that shouldn't be a bad thing. That's not a negative. That we need to take pride. We have, because of our state, local, and federal laws, we have a network of over 3,000 retail shops, lounges, bars. We have the most variety and choice when it comes to the ability to enjoy a cigar indoors or outdoors, and a very robust consumer market. So that's the type of story that I've been engaging with the administration. I was at the White House on Monday. We have to be cognizant of where the industry stands in the grand scheme of the policy. We need to responsibly tell our story and concerns with it. So, we're engaging with economists. We're looking at the details, but I have told our inner circle, our board of directors, our members, our consultants, don't start firing at stuff immediately, because this could change in a few days. And right now, from what was it, Thursday's Thursday's announcement to today, or no, it was actually Wednesday. A week's time, you're looking at two vastly different things.
Yeah.
So you could have got caught up arguing things. Implementation day was Saturday. So Saturday, tariff implemented, change already by Wednesday. So this is in flux. This is something that we're going to be dealing with, for weeks and months. My job is to explain what's going on, explain the concerns to the appropriate stakeholders, but we can't swing at everything.
Yeah. And to your point, there's uh, probably not the capacity in the US to manufacture that level of consumption, that level of cigars, particularly not in a few years, where you could maybe just ramp up production tomorrow. So certainly there will be not so many alternative products available for potential cheaper price. And speaking of price, maybe let's dumb it down for me at least here. What do tariffs on a cigar mean? Maybe you can walk us, or we can together walk through an example of what it could mean for a consumer. Let's say you have a cigar in a retail shop, costs you as a consumer $10 retail price. If you would now calculate that back, because I believe the tariffs are applied to manufacturing costs. Let's say we have a 20% tariff on a whatever country it is, from what their cigar is from. What would be the effect for the end consumer?
Yeah, so it also depends whether the retailer is going to keystone their price. So, I think that if you're looking at a 20% tariff, you'll have 20% the cost of the cigar itself. So let's say 20 cents. Now, is it going to be 10.20 or is it going to be 10.40? That's the question of, whether the retailer is going to charge that. Plus, it's not as simple as the cigar itself. Some of the boxes and the components of the box, the cellophane, there are produced elsewhere. In Customs and Border Protection, they released guidance on the tariffs that went into effect Saturday that were released last week. There were some deductions and exclusions for things that were made in the US. So if there was up to 20% of the value made in the US, you may be able to get some exclusions or deductions. Well, I think you can argue, and this is what I have told folks, and I'm like, hey, am I right here? The most expensive part of a cigar is the wrapper. So if you have a Pennsylvania broadleaf or a Connecticut shade wrapper, I think it's pretty easy to get to that 20% threshold. So you might be able to get within that exclusion. So a lot of it is kind of unpacking and seeing what is acceptable. So there's a lot of things that we could use as examples, but there's no perfect formula of what a end cigar will cost, especially because you have the variance with the tariffs. Up until literally an hour ago, you had Nicaragua at a higher rate than the DR and Honduras. Now, the understanding, and I'm still getting text messages on this as we go, is that they're all have the 10% universal tariff. Whereas if you read what was originally stated, I think you could have made the case that the tariff itself was not going to apply to those countries, that they were seeking deals. So there's a 90-day pause, but the 90-day pause is setting that to 10%, with the exception of China, which is at 125%. So if you're in the accessory market and you're producing from China, bad news today, in terms of that. And if you are somebody that has a supplier, or you purchase products that are made in China in the United States, that's really tough, that the news. But for everybody else, for the most part, seeing that ease, it looks like our stock market is starting to correct back to normal a little bit.
Yeah, and we probably can expect more changes, by the hour almost, be it China, be it Americas. So certainly very volatile, but I found it fascinating that you have to look at all the different components, of course, the box, then packaging, but of course the product itself. So I can only imagine how tough that must be for customs to sort of react on the fly as well, and potentially sanction, I guess. And we probably don't even know about this either. What about sanctioning anyone who's not complying with tariffs? I can only wonder.
Sure, when you're doing the pec fly machine, that you don't roll your shoulders forward.
Sorry, please go ahead.
I think the sanction side of things, that's a different tool in trade policy altogether. But in terms of penalties for non-compliance in this, it's going to be very difficult. And I would see a lot of companies in that Customs Border Protection, they release guidance after the executive order. There is a email line that you can get advisory opinions on, so you can ask some of these specific questions.
Yeah.
I would encourage people to do that rather than, rolling the dice and doing something that
Yeah.
could lead to a penalty.
So now thinking back at PCA and you mentioned a big part of it is manufacturers being able to give discounts to the retailers. Um, are they at all impacted by this, or shall they just kind of business as usual because it is changing by the hour? What are you telling those folks that are giving discounts or potentially now giving more or less discounts?
Yeah, so I think a lot of folks have maintained their discounts for the show this year. A lot of companies will have inventory for the next few weeks or even months on hand. So that product is not subject to the tariffs. That's already in country. I will be looking at prices in late May and June as an indicator of where we see prices of overall cigars going. That's really, whatever happens in April is going to determine when price changes or price effects go into play. It's crazy because, for premium cigars, we just received relief on user fees. And then, a couple weeks later, now we have, new tariffs in play. So there's been a lot of price fluctuation for manufacturers in general. I mean, a couple of them might preemptively raise prices. I think you got to look most want to honor the deals. They want the retailers to continue to purchase products because it is a very competitive market here in the States to get shelf space. I mean, you have some stalwart brands that they've put, certain quantities or quotas in place in order to even carry their products. So there's a lot of variance there, but I think simple answer to your question, prices, the discounts at the trade show, most of them are sticking. I think really looking at the full effects of tariffs on premium cigar pricing late May, early June.
So question for you. What about all those manufacturers that are giving the deals pre-show to people who aren't going to the PCA? Is there anything being done about that? Because over the years that I've worked it, there's been a lot of companies that gave the discount whether you went to the PCA or not, and it kind of screwed with a lot of the people coming.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously want people to encourage people to come to the trade show. I think a lot of that was, enticing retailers. Hey, you can only get these deals if you come for 4 days. The trade show itself has evolved into a multifaceted event. The deals are part of the show, but that's not the end all be all of why people come to the show. I think in previous iterations, the association was concerned about retail attendance. My philosophy on this is that people are going to make independent business decisions that I can't control, that we, the association, can't control. I think that's a perfect example of doing early show deals. They're trying to sell their product. They're trying to make a living. Now, do we like that? Not necessarily. Does it help the association and the trade show? Not necessarily. But I need to build a quality, valuable product as the trade show itself with all these different elements in place. Deals are one of them. if I lose a couple people because they're getting some of the deals elsewhere, I need to compensate and fill that overall bucket somewhere else. And I think that's what we've been working on doing. It is a business decision to come to the trade show in general. You're taking time out of your daily lives. You're putting money towards that. So we need to provide an atmosphere that is valuable or productive for those people. We appreciate everybody supporting the show, exhibiting and attending and participating. And, it does fund the advocacy fight. I know that, PCA, CRA, CAA, the three associations, we're all fighting. Our principal funding mechanism for the longest time has been the trade show. This year, we've increased membership so much that that is becoming a large vertical. In past associations, IPCPR, PCA, we focused on membership dues and trade show. This new cycle that we've been building, we have about 10 to 12 different revenue streams. So, I'm focusing on our end, build a quality product. People will come to that. And, we're kind of keeping blinders. There'll be little things that we don't really care for here and there, but it's not going to disrupt our message and our focus. And, again, we appreciate everybody that comes to the show, supports the association. But I know, for a lot of them, it isn't out of just the kindness of their hearts. There's not this, warm and fuzzy feeling. There's going to be a lot of people that will do a ton of business this week, and that's important for their livelihoods, their families, their businesses, the generations to continue this industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well. Ray, got a question for you here. And Ray, if you can unmute yourself, I'm inviting you to ask it yourself. It's a bit more technical here on the FDA tobacco users fee. Maybe you want to pose that to Josh yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Josh. I was thinking with all the situation with the FDA and probably the exemption of the cigars we might see in the nearest future, do you think the tobacco users fee might drop and maybe we see cheaper cigars?
So right now, user fees don't apply to premium cigars. That is the outcome of the lawsuit. So right now, the user fees are not applied to things that meet the meta definition of a premium cigar. So yeah, the calculations and I think that the cigar sales, it's the calculation for user fees is overall tobacco product sales. So we're such a small piece of that. Even if there was an increase or a drop, I don't know what the calculations when you factor in cigarettes and some of the other tobacco products, if we will have much of an effect. But right now, if you are producing premium cigars, per the court decision, and that you have to meet that definition, and we encourage people to consult with their individual counsel, but you don't have to pay future user fees.
Yeah, I mean, when I check the website of the FDA, they say the tobacco, the premium cigars in 2024, when it was still obliged to pay, it was about 25 million per quarter. So the rest was obviously cigarettes and all the other tobacco products, but the cigars was roughly like 100 million a year. Let's call it that way, if it's 25 per quarter.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't hope to see cheaper cigars, but just maybe slightly down the line, I was thinking it might happen, but who knows? Thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Ray, for this one. And I want to follow on with a question from Albert here about potential other legal challenges after the latest win against the FDA that you can already see forthcoming. Certainly, tariffs on everybody's mind right now, PCA, of course, but when you take your mind to what's next, what other challenges do you see these days?
generational smoking bans, in a state other than Massachusetts, where the Massachusetts Constitution is pretty clear in the authority that it gives local health boards. We're going to fight those all along the way. But in terms of legal challenges, it's very difficult in Massachusetts. So, if another state attempts to follow that and, it ends up going into force, I think that there'll be a legal challenge there. There's some private sector issues that could also lead to legal challenges. Those are really the biggest
Yeah.
pieces. I think that's what keeps me up at night. Like, you know, terms and services of tools that are ubiquitous that we all use that are common. And I'm not saying that they're doing this, but like for example, what if Zoom decided in their terms and services that you're no longer allowed to showcase tobacco products? Or discuss them. Like, we're going to have to then fight and advocate with a private company that could invariably make that decision. Now, it
Mm.
doesn't make the best economic sense for them because you have paying customers that want to use that service, but they can do it. And sometimes you get leadership in there that isn't necessarily thinking about the business or the bottom line or their existing customers. They have other goals. And we've seen this in banking, in communications, in social media, where there's an aversion to tobacco products. So, I think that that's something that, in the next few years, there are going to be, and there already has been in the past few years in particular, some instances where there could have been a legal challenge. There might in the future. We're kind of keeping our powder dry. We certainly have to clean up a little bit with the district court in the recent court decision. We were successful at the appellate level, but the definition of a premium cigar got kicked back down to the district court level. So, we're going to have to put resources into that, along with Cigar Rights of America. And I think that once we get through that piece of the puzzle, we're going to continue to recalibrate and look at, how can we do the most good for our industry through some of these legal challenges.
Mhm.
But again, we can't do it in an irresponsible way that, would risk bankrupting an association. I mean, these lawsuits, most of the times are multiple $1 million. And I think that's the other, scale of things. If you look at, and this is public record in the United States, the 990s of all three trade associations, our yearly budgets do not reach $20 million or $25 million, all three combined. $20 million and $25 million to a Philip Morris is an ad campaign, that they've run sometimes of going smoke free. So like, you got to kind of put it into perspective of we can't fight every single battle as much as we would like to. And, I think some of us, we all can say we are social media warriors occasionally. I'm posting about everything that makes me mad about the government restricting my ability to enjoy a premium cigar. But not everything's going to lead to a lawsuit or a meeting lobbying with the White House saying, I don't like this.
Yeah, certainly makes sense. And I can only understand you saying that it will be interesting where you may or may not be able to, stream or post or smoke cigars or share the stories on which mediums. All sorts of uncertainty there. Certainly. You spoke about Dubai earlier, and I think Habanos might be actually there, if I'm not mistaken. So, question here that I thought about, because Habanos will not be at PCA, obviously in the US. Is that something that you see maybe down the road somewhere where you can see, okay, maybe a ban being lifted or Habanos also uh, coming to PCA, or do you think that ship has sailed for the next years to come?
Yeah, I mean that's a decision above my pay grade. Even though I'm in charge of the organization. Look, the Habanos and Quartz, it runs the Dubai event.
Mm.
Um, my understanding is Habanos has not signed up for that. That was something when we were working on partnering with Quartz, we had said to them, look, we can't partner with Habanos.
Mm.
Our membership is predominantly Honduran, Dominican, Nicaraguan cigars. Some of the families had their factories taken. So it's a very sensitive, highly polarized topic. In the United States, we are prohibited from selling Cuban cigars, purchasing Cuban cigars. There's a lot of other challenges beyond the cigar industry in Cuba with, power outages and things that go beyond it. Um, I feel for the Cuban people. There are workers there that, want to make a living in a great quality industry like, premium cigars. And you've seen the development that has shaped up in Santiago and Esteli and Tegucigalpa and those three cities in those countries. So, my hope for humanity in one sense is that the Cuban people and the Cuban cigar workers can enjoy some of those benefits that a lot of those other countries have seen for a while. I think it's beyond me to make a decision, what that will lead into the
Yeah.
future of the United States. I'm sure, you would get, if you ask people at PCA and polled them, you would have some people, retailers saying, oh, it would be great. It would lead to another cigar boom, maybe temporary. You'd have others say, well, great. We want Nicaraguan and Honduran and Dominican cigars to compete against Cuban cigars in the American market because we're going to beat them. So like you'd get a lot of different answers from
No,
that.
no, no, no doubt about it. Here in Europe, if you compare quality and price, but we don't have to get into detail.
Yeah.
Certainly, Josh, it's been great to have you today here in the leading to the PCA. I sort of want to let you go. If there's anyone else with a pressing question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. But Josh, yeah, you have been really amazing here today, and I want to say thank you again. And I wish you have a very successful PCA 2025, and we're glad to have you had today on the show.
I have a very quick question, Josh. Well, we met at Puro Sabor in Nicaragua, by the way, this year. And then I know you went to Dominican Republic event. So, I mean, I haven't been to Dominican Republic event. I'm just, curious question, is it worth it? What's your outtakes? How do you compare those two events?
Yeah, I mean, those are some of the best events in the industry. I love them. I took half of my team to Nicaragua, half of the team to the Dominican Republic. And this was the first time some of them have been at factories and farms. And I said, if you're going to work for this association, you need to see how it all comes together. So this was a one-time investment so that everyone could see, what it's done in those countries, the process. And it was a rewarding trip for all of them. Anytime that I have the ability to, see that in the DR and Nicaragua in particular, has been eye-opening. I learned something new every time. I'm planning on going to Honduras next year, and seeing the similarities and differences. But I think it's worth the investment if you are trying to make a long career in the industry, as many opportunities that you can get to go to the factories and farms, it will help you in the long run. It certainly helped me. Like I understand, we're talking about real intricacies of definitions right now of a premium cigar. And it gets very granular into process and like then trying to figure out is the process the same between that factory, that factory? Like, yeah, if we have to protect and define within the definition certain things, how do we do that? And you can't know it unless you go there and you see it and you ask those questions. So I'm in favor of making the investment, and also the social side of the parties. I mean, the Nicaraguan Pro Sabor and Pro Cigar in the Dominican Republic, that I told our entire team, having gone to those events, we need to raise the bar with our social events and our parties. I'm like, we're not going to get to be at that level. They are doing it at a different level, but if we can raise the bar 50% and get there, then we're headed in the right direction and we're improving.
So overall sentiment from your team was that they really enjoyed it, or was it worth it?
Absolutely. They were already asking me, are we doing it next year? And I'm like, not, I won't, I'm done with, I have one trip to the DR in a couple weeks for the Dominican Cigar Expo. And, I have a couple different events in Europe, between now and the end of the year, but a lot of it's going to be pounding the pavement in Washington, dealing with a lot of the stuff that we have going on.
And then, real quick question, and I have one. So you mentioned something really that it kind of triggered me a little bit, on legal end of. So when you're preparing a lawsuit, and you need to find all the edges, so now you visiting all those factories and learning more about the process. So it helps you to dissect the product and the all the parts that makes that product. So that helps you to convey that message to lawyers, to explain them all the nuances. Wouldn't that make sense actually, now sending lawyers on these trips?
So, yeah, I know, in getting some of the lawmakers and elected officials, we are going to have, and there's going to be a release. I'll say it now. It hasn't been released yet, but we're working on the final details. We have the governor of Louisiana. He's going to address the PCA this year. We have a lot of other dignitaries that will be coming to the show so that they can meet the makers, they can meet retailers, they can see the U.S. industry. I know we've worked with Drew Estate at a couple of their barn smokers. We've had elected officials. We've been talking of getting the Congressional Cigar Caucus to do. They have what's called a Codell. The Codell, we want to bring a couple of those representatives that are in certain committees to go to the DR or to go to Nicaragua to see, how all of that comes together. But, a lot of that stuff it's countries talking to countries. You have to loop in state departments and things like that. So that's another area where we can encourage it, we can invite people, but it is a little bit above even our pay grade.
Also, that was never done before. So I guess, new winds are blowing now with you joining the PCA. So well done.
This will be the first time that the sitting governor will address the PCA IPCPR. So I'm excited for it. It's a true honor. And the Louisiana city of New Orleans has been great to work with in the convention center. So we're excited for the next few days and really getting to see everybody.
Well,
just go to Shelley's back room. You can find all the politicians there that are into cigar smoking.
I'm going to jump in real quick with a quick one, if you don't mind. On a lighter note, after all this talk about legal stuff, and maybe you covered it in the beginning, I had to step away for a second. But on a lighter note, in terms of the city, Vegas makes sense. It's like the Rat Pack and cigars and everything. I think New Orleans is a great choice. And you're talking about, it's a lot of work for the people there and a lot of business happening. What's the fun meter? Like, do you get to, is there after parties? Do you get to enjoy the city, like live music, food, or is it all business and then you go have a good time on your own?
No, I think it kind of all blends together. I mean, with the parties that we're hosting every night, there's a variety of different activities going on. This year we are doing a comedy show with a comedian that's in the cigar or interested in cigars, but really the other features are the cigar industry personalities themselves. So I think next year we're going to do kind of a band musician type deal, so we're really focused on that.
Is it like what you used to do at Light, where we would have rock bands come in and do a show and someone would sponsor it?
I'm not sure. Hold on one second.
I'm wondering, is it Joe Rogan? I'm thinking about cigar enthusiasts that are big comedians.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had I had a follow-up question actually about the so to promote the product, to promote this something that is difficult to promote because so many restrictions, in movies is a good option. And I know that there are loads of movies that they highlight some cigars, especially Puente, stuff, or Padron, cigar has been highlighted in movies. Or some specific manufacturers of lighters, like Saint DuPont, for example. So I'm just curious, if a brand are trying, to do themselves, or PCA is as a like, because like all those big corporates, like Paramount and so on, and Amazon, they rather work with somebody representing a lot of potential viewers than just one brand. So I'm just curious to know if they looked into it.
I don't know about that, but I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, for years, I don't know how many years Joshua's been been going to the PCA or IPCPR, but I've been going for a lot of years. And I can tell you for years, we used to have the last night full day. We used to go to Light and we would have different concerts, but we've had America, we've had, 38 Special, we've had all kinds of bands. And, then when it disappeared, a lot of people were bummed. So when he's talking about a comedian doing a show, I'm thinking, and he's talking about music, are they talking about bringing that type venue back?
Yeah, and I think that we're really going to focus on the personalities, like Nick Perdomo playing the drums and things like that, where we rent out concert venues and focus the talent. I mean, I think one of the things that was in past administrations, and one of the things that the membership was concerned about, they were paying a lot of money for speakers to come to the show, $50,000 speaking fee for an hour. And, we have great speakers and business owners and personalities that are connected within the industry. So, we have a great comedian, Tony V, that's going to facilitate this comedy, but the personalities or cigar personalities are the ones that are actually the show. And we had that comedian sponsored. We're not paying a speaking fee. That is not a responsible use of your association dollars. So we're not going to, pay for something like that.
I remember having Ron White come down for one of the Davidoff breakfasts.
Yeah, the Rock may show up. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Well, Josh, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everyone for the questions, for being with us today. Josh, we hope to see you all at the PCA or at the next lounge or wherever we may find you. We're certainly going to follow it very closely.
Sounds good. Thank you all.
Have a great show. Thank you, Josh, and everybody else. Feel free to stay, of course. Keep enjoying that cigar. I'm gonna step away for a minute, but please continue. I like the idea of having comedians in and around cigars. Are there more than Brad Kreischer and Joe Rogan? I don't even know. I feel like it's a bit more of an athlete's thing, but you guys might be smarter than I am.
Joe Rogan, a comedian? That's a new one.
That was the joke, Albert.
Yeah, got it.
Oh, I know one. I know a good one.
Yeah, go for it.
Bill Burr and Jerry Seinfeld. They had this great show. I'm not sure if it was two comedians in cars getting
Oh
coffee,
yeah,
I think.
yeah, yeah. Comedians in cars getting coffee.
And
They did. They had a cigar.
if I recall, they sat down briefly and had the cigar. Am I correct?
Seinfeld definitely did. I can't remember if that was Bill Burr or who
It
it was,
it
but
was
yeah,
on two occasions. I don't remember, but it was on two occasions when he sat and smoked a cigar. So on that show. So yeah, Seinfeld was promoting cigar industry. Well done.
yeah, that was great.
Yeah, Bill Burr smoked at one of my at my local cigar lounge last football season.
There you
He
go.
actually stepped in and he said he preferred a smaller lounge than actually the stadium.
That makes sense.
Maddie, you just popped by at the end to say hi. That's nice.
Yeah, I was at a job interview, so I was like, well, let me see what I can do because our time difference it doesn't change here. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that episode of the Comedians in Cars actually helped me a lot. And I was stressed out. It's like, I don't know, 2017 or something, and I had started smoking like the small, what are they? Tiny cigar, like you get it in the tin, like a tin
Like
of
a dog walker or cigarillos?
yeah, cigarette, yeah, like the Excaliburs, in the little tin.
You mean like Chicos?
And yeah, but it was like too much, and I was like stressed out, and it was like stress relieving, and I'm doing it every day. And then I saw that episode, and they were talking about cigars and how it's relaxing and time spent, in the right headspace. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm smoking like a cigarette person. This is not right. It changed my life. I'm like, and it changed completely. I cut way back. Yeah, those guys. Yeah, they're great. But I was like, literally, I'm like, oh my god, I'm a cigarette smoker. This is terrible. And so I stopped, and I like refound the joy of what this is based on that one show. Can you believe that?
There was an Austrian Christoph Waltz, yeah. So he also smokes cigar, as well, and he's a cigar smoker, really.
He's a good actor.
Yeah.
Are we still live? We're still live, I think.
Oh,
Oh, are we?